Welcome, Internet. Are you ready for this? Today, we are working on a 1978 Chevrolet Horton M/R ambulance, and this thing is a beast. Here's a quick introduction to get you guys acquainted. Alright, here are some of the tools you might need for this job. Starting from left to right, we have a 1/2-inch box end wrench for doing battery work. We have a small 1/4-inch ratchet with a 7mm and 1/4-inch socket for removing screws. You're going to need a Phillips head screwdriver, a pair of snips, a flathead screwdriver for prying up on electrical connectors, a good pair of strippers for wire cutting and stripping, some good heat shrink to insulate those connections and make sure you don't have any more problems in the future. Also, you're going to probably want a good soldering kit, whether that be butane or electrical, and then you're also going to want some zip ties to keep everything nice and neat. Common hand tools, very cheap, very easy to find, and you can get this job done in no time. Now let's get to work. Today we're working inside the cabin, and this will apply to any GM van from 73 through 1987. This video will be focusing on this issue. Turn your key to the ignition position, and you've got nothing. No heat, no fan blower, it's just dead. Now this is a common issue for this type of vehicle in this year, where the climate control system will just cease functioning. One thing we can check though is, now down here underneath the dash, you'll find a fuse panel right up here. Up in this fuse panel, you'll find a slot that's marked AC HTR, or AC heater, and this is the fuse for the heater climate control circuit. Now this is a common first place to check. Check your fuses. If it looks like this, you know you're good. You got a full connection there. But if this link in the middle is broken, that means you got a short somewhere. Now on forums for these specific model of vehicles, a lot of guys are saying that oftentimes the electrical connector for the CC unit sometimes gets torqued out of place, and it'll go bad. Now over time, torque on this connector will sometimes cause light intermittent connection to the back of this AC selector unit. Now this oftentimes will lead to melting, shorting out, and just generally bad electrical problems. So that's where we're going to start first. First thing we want to do with any type of electrical work is disconnect the battery from the system. Now on the ambulance, we have a selector knob for our battery cutoff. Now obviously most other vehicles won't have that. So go to your engine bay, find your battery, disconnect the red terminal. Now if you don't know how to disconnect the battery, this video may be out of the scope of your intelligence. Now if you don't know how to disconnect the battery, look up how to disconnect the battery. Very simple. It's like one step, turn a wrench or something, boom, you're safe from getting electrocuted. To get to the climate control unit, we have to remove this dash piece right here, which is held in by 6 screws. There'll be 3 screws up top, shown in the red circles, and 3 screws down below, marked in these rough areas. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. All right, with all screws removed, your dash piece should lift up just like this. All right, once you have your climate control unit exposed, there'll be 3 screws holding it in. You have one right here, here, and normally there'd be one up here, but this ambulance has been modified, so we won't have to worry about that one. Now, to take out this climate control unit, we're going to be using, hold on, what's this? Huh. Anyway, Now your climate control unit is held in by 3 screws. To get the screws out, you're going to be using a small 1/4-inch ratchet. And in this application, the socket size is 7mm. There's one. And there's two. Now, a handy tip for keeping yourself organized on the job is to use one of these magnetic bowls. Great for holding screws, any loose accoutrements you have, and it just makes the job go a whole lot easier. Alright, with your 3 screws out, we can pull this guy out of the dash. And yep, looks like we've got some major melting going on. Very charred, very black. Now to remove this electrical connector, use the tip of a flat blade screwdriver, put it underneath the tab, and gently pry up. Once that's loose, just reach in there, pull it out. Here's a close-up of the damage. You can see obviously both the connector and the AC selector switch, which is the orange unit below it, are both very charred, very nasty, and very much need to be replaced. Since these both need to be replaced, we got new parts. Here's a new AC selector switch. Got this off Amazon, pretty cheap. Link will be in the description below. You're also going to need a new 5-pin female electrical connector. This is a GM PT115. Now, understanding the reason this happens is, from the factory, this electrical connector right here often gets buried underneath other cables. And over time, over many years of abuse and driving and vibrations, this connector will be kind of torqued down like that and cause your short issue. To remove the AC selector, we're going to be using a 1/4-inch socket. There are 2 screws that hold it in. There's one. And there's 2. Now this guy will just lift right out of there. Now here's a close-up of the damage. You can really see how kind of charred and burnt that is. How all melted, discolored the metal is as well. It's bad news. Good news is we have a replacement. Now with all new replacement parts, you want to take the old and the new and compare them. Make sure the bolt holes line up, make sure you have the correct amount of metal terminals, and just make sure it generally looks like it's the same thing. In our case, this looks good, so we're going to go ahead and install it. Now go ahead and drop that bad girl in there. Make sure everything lines up. Now get your screws and thread them in by hand. Now sometimes with these really coarse threads, you're going to have to use mechanical advantage to get them started because they have to bite into the plastic first before they can fully snug down. Okay, both have been started and now let's install. Alright, once you got it in there, make sure this pin right here is in its slot and go ahead and tighten it down. There's one and there's 2. So you've got both those screws snugged up. Go ahead and verify that the selector switch works. Great. Now for this pin, this piece of will not do. So we're going to go ahead and replace it. We're going to go ahead, get in there, and snip those wires. Alright, out with the old, in with the brand new. Alright, since we're only going to be using 3 out of these 5 wires, we're going to go ahead and zip tie the other 2, just to keep things nice and neat. As you can see on the old connector, we're only using pins 1, 3, and 4, so we're going to go ahead and zip tie 2 and 5. Always cut the ends off. Never leave a tail. If you get one thing from this video, always cut your ends off. Just do it. Alright, that's number 2 done. Now for the 3 wires we will be using, we don't need this much length, so we're going to shorten them a bit. This is also a good time to strip the ends of your wires. Great. We can go ahead and get these wires stripped that are inside the dash. Alright, all 3 wires in the dash stripped. The way this harness reconnects is your solid brown wire is in terminal number 1, the green wire goes in terminal number 3, and the brown with the white stripe goes in terminal number 4. Before you go twisting wires together, make sure you got your heat shrink on the wires. Trust me, do not use electrical tape. I once was a firm believer in electrical tape, but no more. Heat shrink is the way to go. If you learn one thing from this video, use heat shrink. Oh, and also cut the tails off of your zip tie. But also use heat shrink. It'll save you a load of time, a load of money, and the job will just look nicer. So much less hassle. Shrink on, time to connect those wires. Once you have all 3 wires twisted together and your heat shrink ready to go, now we must solder them. For the soldering, we'll be using a Dremel 2000 propane soldering gun. Go ahead and let that warm up. And while you're in there soldering, make sure you don't melt anything. It's going to be a bad day when you're fixing one problem and you cause another. So just be careful. If you're soldering with a propane torch like this, mind the exhaust. Heat shrink on, go ahead and shrink it down. Your heat shrink all shrunk up, go ahead and give her a test. All right, she's connected, everything's plugged back in, and moment of truth. Oh yeah, we are backed up and running. And boom, just like that. All it takes is a few dollars in parts, a few hours of work, and you'll have a working AC climate system again. Okay, now installation is the exact opposite of removal. So go ahead, put your unit back in there, make sure the holes line up, thread them into the holes, go ahead and snug them down. There's one, and there's two. All right, screws are in. Now go ahead and take your dash piece and set it back in place. There's one, two, three, four, 5, and 6. And that's it. You are done. Now you know how to diagnose climate control issue and possibly fix it. I don't know, playa. Did you fix it or did you just watch the video? Hey, it's all good. Knowledge is power. Well, I hope you learned something here today. Like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube stuff. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. This is Bread, signing off.